Hello, everyone. I'm Carly, and I like pina coladas and getting caught in the blood rain.
And I'm Sam, and just in case anyone was curious, Carly and I are just business partners. Wink.
And welcome to Read Receipts with Carly and Sam, our book-based podcast covering all the latest hits and some stories off the beaten path.
With a few fun and exclusive episodes mixed in between.
And Happy New Year! Bow, 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 bow! I knew you guys missed the air horn.
We should have gotten one of those like New Year's like
yes, the little
things.
like yeah. We didn't think about
the little like clappers or whatever. The air horn works just fine. I'm sure. Yeah, you guys understand. You get it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, new year, new us. Did you guys miss us? I know it's only been a couple weeks, but that's basically like an entire fantasy series, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It feels like it was no time for us, basically, because we took a break, but we never stopped thinking.
Yeah. The podcast is always front of mind.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully today, assuming that you did read the book for this week's book club, hopefully you didn't piss your pants while you're reading it. But even if you did, I'm sure that today's characters wouldn't have minded, because today we are reading the spicy romantasy with a side of horror, Phantasma by Kaylie Smith.
Carly is being so unhinged today for our first episode back of the new year.
You know, when you say pissing your pants and you're like, these people are such freaks. No kink is shamed here, I don't think, in this book.
We also just like glossed over your whole intro with the blood rain. You said that and I was like, Carly.
Do you like pina coladas?
Oh, man. But if you have read the book, you know exactly what that means.
I really can't wait to talk about it.
Well, then why don't we just, like, go ahead and dive in?
Yeah, let's. I'm ready. Oh, wait, right. I have to read the back of the book.
For those of you who need a reminder.
If you need a reminder, if you're like, what are these people talking about?
Blood rain?
Piss? No, to be clear, no one pisses in this book. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I said it.
Carly's just being really unhinged for our first episode back.
Yeah, we've
got a year under our belts now. Carly's like, let's let loose.
We got blankets today too.
That's true.
It's casual today.
And we've got our cozy little mugs.
Yes. Our very cute little podcast.
Clink, clink.
Podcast mugs.
So it's a new year. Like I said, new year, new us.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. I hope everyone's ready to talk about Phantasma. Phantasma only has 2 rules: stay alive and don't fall in love. When Ophelia discovers her mother brutally murdered, there is no time to grieve. She has inherited the family's fearsome magic and enormous debt. Circumstances go from dire to deadly, however, when Ophelia's sister decides to pay off the loan by entering Phantasma, a competition where contestants rarely escape alive, and the victor is granted a single wish. The only way for Ophelia to save her sister is to win, but Phantasma is a cursed manor, full of twisting corridors and lavish ballrooms, staffed by enticing demons and fatal temptations. And Ophelia must conquer all 9 floors to succeed, if her fears don't overtake her first. When a charming, arrogant stranger claims he can help, Ophelia knows better than to trust him. But with her sister's life on the line, Ophelia can't afford to turn him away. She'll just need to ignore the overwhelming, dark attraction drawing them closer and closer together. Because in Phantasma, the only thing deadlier than losing the game is losing your heart. And boy, is that specific to Ophelia.
Classic romantasy here. Let's run through some of the characters before we kind of get into the actual story. So, like Carly mentioned in the back of the book summary, some of our characters are Ophelia, our main girly, Blackwell / what's his name? His like devil name?
Salamatress? Hold on, let me look at that again. Salamastress, maybe.
So some things haven't changed on the pod. We're still not very good at name pronunciation, but that's okay. So we've got our 2 main characters there, our love interests, if you will. We've got Genevieve, Ophelia's sister, Sinclair, Lucy, Cade, Jasper. some other Charlotte, another contestant, and then there's quite a few like other side characters that are kind of mentioned here and there. So, but our main ones obviously are going to be Ophelia and Blackwell, our love interests for the story, and boy, do they have quite a progression of story.
Yes, they do.
Here in this book. But before we actually dive too far into the depths of Phantasma, we just want to remind everyone that because this is a book-based podcast, we will be diving pretty deep into the plot points of this book, character backgrounds, theories even. So if you want to give it a read based off of the back of the book summary and some of the characters that we just talked about, make sure to pause the episode here, go give the book a read, then come on back and join us to gush and gossip about everything that goes on in this pretty unhinged romantasy story. You've been warned.
You've been warned. All right, let's get into it. To begin, we really open this book with our main girl, Ophelia, and she has a lot going on. It's, as the back of the book summary mentioned, her mother has died. She has taken over her family's magic, and we find out soon after that she also has inherited a lot of debt from her mom. And so it's just her and her sister working things out. And on top of that, too, we find out that she has her own shadow voice in her head, aka OCD. Sam, what did you think when we got introduced to Ophelia? And there's a lot to tackle with her, but I feel like we should go ahead and open up with like kind of the biggest thing that comes up throughout the book is her OCD. Did you have any thoughts about what that looked like to you and how it was portrayed in the book?
I thought it was interesting portraying it as like the shadow voice. I feel like in my experience with somewhat mild OCD, I don't really think of it as like a separate voice or like a separate entity. It just like feels like a part of me that I just like can't really control sometimes. Yeah. So I thought it was an interesting, not necessarily like right or wrong, just like an interesting device having it be like almost like its own character. Yeah. In the story and the way she relates it to being like the shadow voice. I thought that was interesting, and I thought it was good for a book where you're trying to describe what OCD might feel like to a broader audience that many in that audience may not quite understand. I thought it was a good device for Kaylie Smith, the author, to use to have people kind of understand what that might be like to be someone who lives with a pretty pronounced form or type of OCD.
Yeah. And I think also for it being a fantasy book, I think it is very fitting, and honestly a very fitting, in my opinion, genre to have OCD in, because I do think that I don't want to like make it seem as though OCD is just completely unmanageable, but I think there is something about like, especially when intrusive thoughts kind of do reach into really dark places. Like we saw oftentimes Ophelia dealing with random intrusive thoughts about like killing people that she loves. It's kind of one of those things that like OCD can turn into that people often don't feel comfortable talking about, because obviously like it makes you sound crazy when it's like, I kind of have these thoughts about killing people, but obviously I don't want to. You feel as though it could reflect you in some way. So it's a really good format to bring into this like romantasy and also kind of horror book to showcase that like, I know no one means anything by it when they say like, oh, I have a little bit of OCD, when it's talking about like, oh, I like my things organized basically. But it is a good way to show there's a lot more to this oftentimes. Like, for sure. It is very difficult to manage. Like I also have OCD. It's something that I honestly only more recently kind of realized because my sister has OCD, and she's a lot more like textbook, like kind of like Ophelia in a lot of these ways, where she has had physical compulsions too and stuff like that. And because mine looks so different from hers, I didn't really realize it. But even despite, say, my OCD not looking the same as hers, like I did find a lot of the representation still relatable with sometimes how all-consuming these thoughts can be and how difficult it is to navigate that.
I think Kaylie Smith, the author, also has OCD herself, so I feel like that also contributed to it being portrayed more accurately, I guess, because she herself has experienced it. So there was a scene towards, I think, later in the book where the shadow voice sort of takes its own autonomy to a little bit more of an extreme where we kind of think it's going to be its own character.
Yes.
How did you feel about that? Were you like pro it being its own character? Or were you kind of like, this is an even more interesting use of the shadow voice, quote unquote, and I'm not sure if I like the connection that we're going in with it being more autonomous?
I could see how that's kind of complicated. It's hard because I do think that it represents accurately that like this can be kind of scary, and how I think for a lot of people with OCD, part of the fear almost becomes the OCD itself, which I think was Ophelia's case, and that's why that got sort of portrayed all of a sudden in a more real life physical way. That was like her deepest fear unlocked. But I think that, okay, I think what made it better in the end though is the fact that she does kind of conquer in that moment. Like, you know, they basically do fight and she kind of comes out on top and ends up okay, which is exactly what you're supposed to do with OCD treatment. So like, you know, I think it kind of worked out, even though like it starts off a little spooky and it's like, what are we doing? I think overall by the end, it was handled pretty well.
I wasn't sure if the shadow voice was really going to be a separate character, which was the only reason that I was a little bit worried about how that kind of scene was going to play out. But I do like how Kaylie Smith ended up just tying it back into it still being like OCD and still being Ophelia, almost like Ophelia, not Ophelia versus Ophelia, but Ophelia versus Ophelia's OCD, you know, and it wasn't actually a separate character, because I don't know how well I would have handled that. So I liked that it wasn't exactly that.
Right. One more thing also about the OCD, did you happen to notice how whenever Ophelia was in Phantasma, that it felt as though her OCD got a little bit worse? At one point, it started, I'm trying to remember the exact thing that it called her, but it started calling her like darling, I feel like, and it just seemed to get a little bit more aggressive. And I really thought that part of the situation there was that like Phantasma was having some sort of control over her OCD. But I don't really know now in retrospect if that was actually happening. I don't know if there was really a good explanation for like any of the devils being able to really do that sort of like mind manipulation.
Yeah.
Like it kind of makes sense that some sort of apparition or ghoul or whatever turn themselves into what she pictures as the shadow voice. Like that part kind of makes sense, that was probably some sort of ghost. I don't know. I at one point had a theory that the shadow voice has increased a lot and it's not actually her shadow voice. It's maybe Jasper or Sinclair or something like that increasing it. But then we didn't get a reveal about it either. So I'm kind of in retrospect like, I guess that maybe it just with stress like heated up a little bit, basically.
I think going off of that, I feel the same way about that as I felt about when her shadow voice, we almost thought that maybe it was going to be its own character in that chapter that I was talking about that was closer to the end. I think I feel the same way about what you're saying as I do about that, where I don't think I would have liked that as much. Yeah. Because I think I would have felt like that took away from the focus that I thought we were trying to put on OCD. I feel like I wouldn't have liked that as much because it would have meant that it wasn't actually OCD and that it was just like some magical element causing these thoughts.
Yeah.
So I think I didn't really think of it that way. I thought of it as like, oh, she's in a more stressful environment, which is causing her OCD to like flare up a little bit more, which I think happens to me a lot. So that felt very natural to me that it would get stronger, I guess, in this like high stress environment.
Yeah. I agree.
And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not like that, but I'm just going to choose to believe that it is.
Yeah.
Just OCD recognition.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's fair. As far as like Ophelia as like a main character, I really liked her, to be honest. I thought she was pretty funny. She kind of had like a morbid sense of humor, which like you could expect in this book.
Oh, sure. Well, and I don't know if we even really touched on this that heavily, but she deals with like ghosts and dead people and apparitions all the time in the family business.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, also she's magical. I almost kind of forget about it because, to be honest, like we kind of talked about this previously, that we had a bit of confusion at times of like when it was that she had power. Like, I mean, she had powers throughout, but I guess there was just maybe some times that we were confused about the consistency of like her ability to see dead people and other people's ability to see dead people. Yeah. But yeah, she's both a necromancer, and then we find out later a specter.
So she can like communicate with the dead people, and she can also be kind of ghostly herself.
Okay, so to bring in full circle of like where I got almost a little bit confused about her magical powers is that when she like enters Phantasma, I feel like pretty early she runs into a ghost doing something scary. I don't remember exactly what. It's like its head is maybe falling off or something like that. And the ghost was like, wow, you're one of very few people that wasn't like totally put off by that. There, basically, we have one reference of, okay, so people could see this ghost. And then also when they like first enter Phantasma and there's a ghost that leads them to their side of the manor where they all stay. Again, that is a ghost and they follow the ghost. So like all those people saw those ghosts. But then when we get to Blackwell, it's like suddenly we're reminded like, oh, these people can't see Blackwell. Only Ophelia can. It's like, wait, so what are the rules here?
Yeah.
It's like my guess and interpretation of that is that some of these ghosts can choose to be seen.
That's really what I thought it was. I thought it was on Blackwell's end of like making himself invisible to everyone that wasn't Ophelia.
Yeah.
Because he did that in the games too, like during all of the trials and the levels.
Right. Like suddenly they'd be like, who were you talking to?
Yeah. Or even for Ophelia, like moments where he was like, well, I will just be a voice because my presence is going to take too much energy or you know, whatever. Yeah. So I feel like even for Ophelia, he was sometimes visible, sometimes invisible. So I kind of thought it was just like a Blackwell thing. But outside of Phantasma, Ophelia is really the only one of the characters that we know that can see ghosts and apparitions and other dead people. So there is kind of that bit of disconnect of who can see ghosts and apparitions.
Yeah. Like I honestly didn't realize until I don't know exactly what in the book, but it took me a while to realize that people couldn't see Blackwell. Like, I feel like there's a couple of times where maybe Blackwell carries off Ophelia after a level or something like that, and I just assumed that people could see him there, and until
imagine Ophelia just like floating down the hallway, like
yeah, it's like,
everybody's looking after her, like what is going on?
Unfortunately, the Cade situation of calling her a ghost or whatever or a devil, like yeah, he's building a pretty good argument. This isn't looking good.
I feel like maybe if he were not as much of an asshole in building that argument, I think he maybe could have made a point to where everybody was like, yeah, that is kind of weird. Yeah. Like if he like went about it slightly different, like maybe if he was like, hey, have you noticed like this and this, and like, hey, like did you see her like floating down the hallway, like, or did you see her like talking to nobody, like just like thin air? I feel like he could have made like a pretty strong case.
And honestly, like he did a pretty good job of convincing people even without, like, with his approach.
Yeah. Speaking of Cade, so Cade's another one of the contestants. How did you feel about him, about, like, his whole posse? I don't remember their names, but...
Oh my god, the posse part, I really... At one point, like, the guy that she ends up killing, Ethan, I was like, man, we read most of the book in one day, and I was like, which guy is this? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Like, I just...
But they were, like, his, like, hype men. Yeah. Like, I remember that being...
blend together. I don't remember if, like, they really had that distinguishable personalities.
I just remember them being, like, Cade being like, yeah, she's a devil. And the other guys being like, yeah, what Cade said. Like, that's kind of what it felt like the role that it felt like the other guys kind of played.
Yeah, pretty much.
In that little group.
Cade was just really aggressive the whole time, and
he was really aggressive the whole time.
Yeah, he really took it to the nth degree of like, well, we can do whatever we want in these games. I can complete this level, and if I can also kill my competition, then I guess I will. And it's like, okay, there's really not a reason to do that.
Yeah.
The game can take care of itself, I think. I understand that, I guess, in order to win the game, you have to be the last one alive there. But people can choose to leave. You can do something without, like, being so diabolical.
He was in it to win, Carly.
But, like...
He was like, I'm going all the way.
But for money, right? That was like the main thing that he needed. I can't remember what his story.
I think his family was like bankrupt or something. So I think you're right. I think it was for money. But in the end, so if you win Phantasma, you get a wish.
Yes.
Or whatever from the Prince of Devils, who is sort of in charge of the whole Phantasma game. So I think it was money, probably, and that's probably what he would have asked for with his wish.
Which is stupid. I'm just like, okay, but there's other people here. Not to say that, like...
It kind of sounded like most of them wanted money, though.
A lot of them wanted money, but there were two people who, like, they were brother and sister, and they were trying to get back their dead sibling, which is in itself, like, a very complicated thing. But, like, you could really see, like, the human emotion behind that. There's no other way to do this other than winning this wish, you know? But in theory, it's like, I don't know, especially if you are an influential family that like had money before, you can probably get money again. I don't know.
I mean, I wouldn't know. It does seem like, you know, people who come from money and suddenly lose it are pretty desperate.
Yes.
So...
And I think that's why I have less sympathy, because it's like, well, you had money.
Yeah.
And what happened to that money?
Yeah. I'm not surprised, though, because it seems like people who, you know, find themselves in that position in real time, in, like, our world, it seems like something that they would do. You get pretty desperate. And you get pretty aggressive, I think, in order to get back to a position that you were previously pretty comfortable in. So I'm not all that surprised that Cade was as much of an asshole as he was.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also that, to be honest, I think Lucy was there for the same reasons. Like, they were family, and I think...
Yeah. Well, but then, you know, we talk about that, and Lucy wasn't very much of an asshole at all.
Exactly. So it's like, well, there's a way to do it without... being an asshole.
Yeah.
Cade.
How did we feel about Lucy and her trying to be friends with Ophelia and Ophelia never deciding to be friends with her?
I felt so bad for her because I felt like there was really no reason not to like her. Like, she stood up for Ophelia whenever Cade was being an asshole. She overall seemed good intentioned. She was friends with Genevieve. She seemed generally nice and like a fine person. I think that for the most part, Ophelia wasn't like horrible to her, but like she also sometimes did say things that were like, I don't want to be friends with you, so I'm going to say something unhinged and weird right now, and it would work. And it's just like, okay, this could be your friend, but whatever.
Yeah, I do kind of felt like it was a little bit one-sided. Like Lucy trying to play with somebody on the playground and like that person like running away from her, like Ophelia being like, no.
Yeah, it's like, come on. I know your sister.
Yeah.
Shouldn't we have something in common?
Yeah. I did feel bad for how Lucy exited the game too.
Yes. Oh my God.
I really liked her as a character.
I know. And I honestly did want to know a little bit more about her and Leon's situation. It's just so sad that basically she ends up admitting that she's in love with him. And then he admits that he isn't in love with her. And like, obviously, it's a complicated situation. Like, he's obviously trying to keep his feelings like this to not get cursed. But then...
It did kind of feel like he was trying to keep it together to not get cursed. I feel like if that wasn't such an important thing in Phantasma, not falling in love, I think he really did like care about her, and I think he would have like fallen in love with her, like let himself fall in love with her, or let himself admit it, if it hadn't been such an important thing to not do that in Phantasma.
Yeah. It's really a shame that someone had to fall in love so that way as the reader we could understand why it's such a big deal. But it's like... It had to be Lucy.
Yeah, I know. And then not only does she get like ejected from the game, but she also is cursed.
Yeah, like this carries from outside of Phantasma.
Yes, yeah, poor girl. Before we kind of move on to what we've sort of been hinting at, that there's this whole separate side quest and side relationship that Ophelia has, I do want to talk a little bit about Genevieve, Ophelia's sister. How did we feel about her?
I thought she was nice and fine. I didn't really have that much of thoughts around her. Although I guess by the end, when like she comes back into the story and she interacts with Blackwell, like she is pretty funny. She's a little bit more like crass, I guess, and stuff like that.
I did really like her. I think a lot of the times, just in general, with genres like this, where you have, you know, a female main character and she has a younger sister, typically the female main character is a little bit more capable, I guess, and you have the younger sister who's kind of just like there.
Yeah.
But Genevieve wasn't really like that at all. Like, she definitely had her own personality. It almost felt like in certain situations she was a little bit more capable than Ophelia.
Yeah.
So I really liked that about her, that she had her own personality. She was funny. She was a little bit crass. She was smart, you know, and she had her own life and her own backstory that we did touch on a decent amount in the book, with Ophelia, you know, being kind of jealous that she had to take on the burden of carrying the family magic and the family business. And Genevieve kind of got to live a life where she got to go out and make friends and didn't have to worry so much about their magic or anything like that. And so I thought that that was a good, I mean, there were moments of contention with that between the sisters, but I felt like that was a good, like, very subplot line that didn't really, like, ruin their relationship. And then eventually they got to, like, touch on it and sort of resolve that situation. It just felt really, I don't know, I liked her as a character, and I liked that storyline with the sisters.
And also we find out that she has magical powers of her own. So that also is really interesting. And I like, too, that it's like, okay, how does she survive? We find out she's a specter, and she's like, oh, so you also found out about being a specter. And Genevieve's like, well, I've actually known this for, like, my whole life.
Yeah, Genevieve is, yeah, she's intelligent, she's capable, she's funny, and I did just overall like that she had a personality.
Yeah,
which was nice.
And I think that'll make it really exciting too, going into another book and knowing more about Genevieve. We will once again have another character that has magical powers, but, like, very different from Ophelia. Like, she has a pretty good understanding of her own magical powers. So very different perspective in that way.
Yes. Yeah, it will be interesting to see how the series kind of evolves, with the focus shifting a little bit into Genevieve and her life. And then wherever we go from there with the unreleased third book.
Yeah.
So, but, I mean, we'll see. Maybe we'll cover it on the pod.
We'll see.
How did you feel about, overall, the whole Ophelia Blackwell relationship and that progression?
I really liked it.
Yeah.
I really liked Blackwell. Like, honestly, even from the get-go, when we first get introduced to him as, like, a ghost, before the manor and Phantasma, like, officially starts, I was like, by the end of that interaction, I was like, wait.
Yeah. I feel like you could kind of tell by the end of that interaction that he was going to end up being important.
Yeah.
You know, like, talking to her, kind of schmoozing her, charming her a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, it's a little scary, because I felt like Ophelia was getting the sense of, like, something really bad could happen right here. But then he's also, like, just being so sensual. It's
but
like,
he was luring her in a little bit. And I think it was kind of working.
It was. She was like, I could stay.
Yeah.
She's like, no, I'm supposed to go.
Yeah.
I need to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then when we actually, like, meet him in the manor, I don't know, I just really liked Blackwell. I thought he was a really good MMC. I liked that he was still he was like the best of both worlds, of, like, being very playful and funny and smarmy, but also, like, really sensitive.
Yes. He had a little bit of everything. Like, he was very enticing, but also kind, especially when it came to her. You know, there was that, like, sensitivity and that, like, vulnerability that he had with her. But then also, like I mentioned earlier, there was also that jealousy that he kind of had, which I know, listen, I understand that that's kind of like a toxic trait, but it was also kind of hot. I was like, yeah, get it.
Yeah.
He was like, hold on, you're talking to the other devils. Hold on, you let him kiss you? I was like, ooh, it's about to get crazy.
It really felt like in this book we were, like, a little bit allowed to, like...
We were allowed to be like...
we're getting freaky in this book.
Exactly, yeah. We might as well be a little bit possessive, like, maybe a little bit toxic of,
Why
like,
not?
You're not allowed to let other people touch you. I was like, oh, Blackwell.
If you say so.
I was like, you tell her that it's only you and her.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Obviously, I was also a big fan of the boning.
Yes. It was, I gotta be honest, it was pretty hot.
It was pretty hot. It was pretty freaky.
It was really
I was
freaky.
like, whoa.
It really killed me whenever they finally do bone. Like, I don't know, maybe halfway through, they're in her bedroom, and an apparition or whatever, a ghoul, I don't remember which words exactly are right, starts happening, and it starts raining down blood.
Oh, we know that you remembered that.
and he's like, oh, let me clear this up. And she's like, yeah.
She's like, it's just a little blood. I was like, Ophelia, you little freak.
Like, what are we doing? I don't know. I was just like, this you're okay with?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, and even like the moments where they're like making out in like the hallway, or like
Or other things in the hallway.
Or other things in the hallway. Like, they're clearly in like a public space or in the library, and someone like happens to walk in on them. Like, of course this is gonna happen. You're clearly in a public space.
Yeah. And it's so funny to imagine the fact that apparently this whole time no one can see Blackwell. So what are they seeing?
I can't even. That's even worse than just like picturing Ophelia floating down the hallway as Blackwell's like carrying her. Picturing her like boning, but it's just her because nobody else can see him.
Mm-hmm. It seems that most of the time it works out that no one sees her, but we do get this sense that Sinclair was watching a lot of those times.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so there's some voyeurism here, like,
Yeah, and oh my god, that happens actually a few times, because I think there's another time too where Jasper like pops in while they're doing
in
something.
the library.
Oh, that was in the library.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's just like, guys, what is happening?
And then Sinclair was in the hallway. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, this is like freaky. Like, it's not just like Ophelia being freaky. Everybody's a little bit freaky. We should have known from the Lust trial, the second trial, that it was going to be freaky,
Yeah. We also got, I feel like it was like Jasper and maybe one of the other early devils, like all of a sudden they kind of just...
They pop in.
They just pop in boning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's everybody.
What else
it's
are
not
these
just
devils
them.
gonna do?
Yeah, it's everybody. Everybody's boning. Everybody's freaky.
So maybe that's why you have to be careful with your heart and Phantasma. Everyone's boning, so like, your heart might follow suit or something.
You can't, you got to be careful. It's bone only, okay?
Bone only, no feelings.
No feelings, just bone.
Mm-hmm. That's what they say.
That's what they say. That's what I think that's the rule in Phantasma. I think that's exactly how they say it, right?
It's the only thing deadlier than losing the game is boning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's it. It says it right there.
Yeah, it's on the cover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know how to read.
Okay, let's talk about our main man, because we talked about Ophelia quite a bit, but what about Blackwell? We talked about him as like a phantom.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Him as a person?
Yeah. / as not a phantom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I was really okay. Here's another aspect, because we get the reveal that Blackwell is the Prince of Devils, and I'm still like a little bit confused about how exactly this magic works. Some of the time he is the Prince of Devils and he's like a person basically, and then part of the time he's a phantom. And does a phantom version of Blackwell exist at the same time that a corporeal version of him also exists in that like room, waiting for whoever wins Phantasma to come through? Like, do you think that they both exist at the same time, or is it like he is this phantom version and then once that door opens he becomes?
I think that's a great question, because it's also like the complexity of that with him not really remembering why he's there.
Yeah.
So is that when he doesn't remember why he's there, is that when he is a phantom and he's kind of just like roaming the halls and helping whoever he decides to help? But then when he walks through the door for the final trial, he becomes corporeal and then suddenly gets all of his memories. Is there that like type of disconnect? I'm not sure, because I think that was part of what made the ending, which we're slowly kind of going to get into, a little bit confusing because of how complex it was. Like, that was one of the things that we were confused about.
Yeah, I kind of think that that is how it worked throughout most of Phantasma. It's like he is this phantom form that doesn't remember everything. It's like he's some sort of like weird watered down version. So, well, I guess also though, it's like, is his body somewhere else? I don't need to know that, I guess. It doesn't matter.
I think maybe it's the same thing of like how he can be visible to Ophelia but invisible to everyone else. Maybe he can like choose when to solidify.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know? I don't know.
Yeah, like maybe because of like the tampering with his memories, it's almost like he doesn't remember how to / that he can like become.
Yeah.
fully-
Maybe until he walks through that door for the final trial.
Yeah. I don't know. It's crazy because I did have the thought as like the book was going on. It's so weird that like there's such a specific structure to like we have these devils and they orchestrate each level, and then we have these ghouls and those are in charge of making things scary in between. But then why do we have Blackwell here as a random phantom? Like we don't see other random figures really other than the cat Poe. But like even Poe, it's like, well, it's just a cat. Like who cares?
I mean, that's fair. We don't really see other phantoms. And I don't know if maybe that's just because it would be confusing for the reader since we're supposed to be focusing on Blackwell / Blackwell and Ophelia.
I think that is the point. I think that is why it's like there's no other, because it's like, oh, well, he's not just a phantom.
Right, yeah. With that and like him not really being someone who remembers what his history was like until he maybe crosses the door and becomes corporeal, we're not sure on that. Do the other devils know who he is?
I don't know.
Because Sinclair, we know, knows who he is. Because Sinclair is the one that's in charge of making sure that Blackwell stays in Phantasma forever and ever and ever. Like, that's his job.
Yeah.
But what about the other devils? Like, do they know?
Yeah, I don't know, because no one else enters that room other than the last victor. So you would think that there's no way that they would know, really.
Yeah.
For sure. So my guess is that they don't.
Yeah. So do you think they, like, in the hierarchy of all of these paranormal creatures, do you think they ever, like, mistreat him or just kind of, like, push him to the side, but then it's like he's actually the prince? Do you ever think that happens? And then do you think when he gets his memories back, he's like, you sons of bitches? Like,
yeah. Honestly, maybe that might happen. Because it's just like, how else would they? But then, oh gosh, I don't know. There's just so much to it. I think that Kaylie Smith should release like a prequel book of just like a little bit of like what exactly it was like for Blackwell in the manor, because I am really curious about that sort of in-between stage between when someone becomes the victor of Phantasma and like before the next Phantasma starts. There's so much I don't know.
There's so much we don't know, but also at the same time, I almost feel like it's not really that important.
Right.
Like, it doesn't really have to do with the story. It's just kind of one of those, like, tangents when you're reading that you're like, huh, I wonder how this would work.
Right. Because, like, I think at the end of the day, like, this is romantasy with, like, a little bit more heavy on the romance.
Yes.
And so we're not really supposed to care as much about these fantasy elements.
Yeah.
But because we're also fantasy readers, it's like, well, I want to know the world building.
Yeah.
I want to know how all of this works.
Speaking of it being a little bit heavier on the romance side than on the fantasy side, what about the backstory, I guess, of the romance? So we kind of talked about like Blackwell and Ophelia's budding romance and how that kind of evolves. But at the end of the book, when we find out just like a whole bunch of things, we also find out that Blackwell is in Phantasma because he fell in love with a mortal and chose being with her over being the Prince of Devils with his father, the King of Devils. And so we also find out that because of that situation, that's why falling in love in Phantasma is so dangerous. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why he's kind of trapped in Phantasma and why Phantasma was created as sort of like a punishment for choosing love over responsibility, over duty. And so anybody else that also falls in love in Phantasma is then doomed as well and like punished by being cursed. So we get this, I guess, like chapter / excerpt of the whole backstory of Blackwell falling in love. Reading that, post-reading that, what did you think about that whole story?
I thought it was so crazy because I definitely felt like there was really true love between Blackwell and Ophelia. Like, this is real. But to know that it was really, like, specifically this girl dies, but, like, is killed in a specific way where the King of Devils then, like, has her soul. And they decide, we're going to release this soul in 500 years and see if Blackwell can, like, get back together with her, basically. Which is a weird test, to be honest. I don't really know what they were trying to accomplish there.
I think it was part that, and then also part, let's see if she is willing to love him.
Right. I forgot that part of it, putting her soul in the body of someone who is able to interact with him, but still be, like, skeptical.
Yeah, like somebody
wanting to.
who would never, like, want to be with a devil or something.
Yeah. So a really interesting, like, test of can you truly be loved, I guess.
Yes.
Sort of thing.
Yeah.
Part of me feels a little bit like it takes away from it a little bit that it's not as simple as, like, they fell in love, but also that she specifically has the same soul as the mortal he originally fell in love with. I don't know. Like, I kind of like the overall connection because obviously I like any connection.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It does feel a little bit weird that it's like, well, he kind of only loves her because it's exactly the person that
This soul that's in her. Yeah.
I also did want to point out, me and Sam already talked about this, but I'm still just like, did anyone else think this? It is mentioned in this excerpt when we're rehashing everything. The girl gets brought into the room. Blackwell rushes over to her, and he's like, oh, they even took out her canines. And I'm like, canines?
I think it was incisors.
Incisors, you're right.
Yeah.
Exactly, incisors. And I'm like, so she was a vampire. And then it wasn't until, like, a little bit later that I'm like, wait, but they said she was immortal. But, like...
Yeah.
But incisors, like, sure, humans have incisors, but so do vampires. And also, okay, furthermore, I was kind of combing through a little bit of the beginning again because I was just, like, curious if there were any Easter eggs. And there is a little bit of an interaction before Phantasma opens between Ophelia and Blackwell where he says something about, like, being invited into the wards or something. And she's like, what, like a vampire? And I was like... Is this something? Is something here? Is this something? But they say multiple times that she's immortal.
I didn't get that at all.
Right.
I just thought it was about her teeth. Like, I just thought, oh, they, like, tortured her. Like,
Right.
they, like, pulled out her teeth, which is, like, a pretty common, like, torture thing.
If you know about torture.
So, I mean, I assume, I don't know anything. I heard, I don't know.
I just heard about it.
I don't know. But yeah, so I just, like, thought that it was, like, Kaylie Smith, like, didn't want to say they took out her teeth because they didn't want it to seem like all their teeth were taken out.
Because then it's like the love of my life, and she's like,
Yeah. So I was like, okay, maybe that's why. I don't know. I did not get that at all. I also am such a, like, I feel like you are a lot more of a, like, details Easter egg reader, and I'm kind of like, this is the story. Like, this is it.
I just am like, they could have tortured her in so many ways. Why pull out her teeth? Like, it feels like
I don't
significant in my mind.
Yeah.
But, like, surely they would know she's immortal. They're the fucking devils. It's not like this would just go past them and they would know. So, like, in my mind, I'm like, she has to be immortal because, like, factually in the story, that is what it is. But I don't know. I just had a moment, okay? And I just want to know if anyone else did, where they started to be like, wait. Well, and again, it's like, but why does that even matter? Why does it matter?
Well, okay, so
Would it?
there are a couple of other moments like that I feel like this is kind of like a natural segue into, like, what did this mean?
Yeah.
Like, there were, like, some moments that were like, hold on, what?
Yeah, some loose ends that are like, are we supposed to know?
Okay, the first kind of, like, loose end I want to bring up kind of ties into the overall story, so I feel like we should start here with the heart and the key.
Yes.
So basically, Ophelia and Blackwell, they meet. Blackwell kind of tells her in a moment of lucidity before Phantasma starts that he is trapped in Phantasma, essentially, and needs a heart and a key to escape. It's
Yes.
a little bit more complicated than that. I think the way he like describes it to her, but that's basically the essence of what he says. And so then when they meet again in Phantasma, she tells him, "Oh, you told me all of these things." And
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, I don't remember that." So she tells him, "You told me that you need a heart and a key." So then they spend a lot of the book, you know, when they're not boning, looking for this heart and key. At the end of the story, we find out that the heart is like her heart necklace?
Yes.
/ her heart?
Yeah. For this part, it's like this is a specific heart necklace that got passed down from since that instance with the original mortal through family lineage. And I think basically every time that a necromancer becomes a necromancer, they have to put on this necklace
In her family.
in her family, and once they get their powers, then that heart ends up being connected to their literal heart, and they have to wear it for their heart to beat.
But the key?
The key. Yeah. So
Now we get to like the loose end sort of portion of that. Because what was that supposed to be?
yeah, I think this is a real one where it's like we aren't meant to know. Because even in the ending, when they're kind of like re-explaining all of this, like Ophelia realizes that the heart refers to that heart necklace / her heart, I think. He kind of even asks, like, but what about the key? And she's like, I don't know. And they're just like, right? So
yeah.
I think that maybe in later books, this is something that will get revealed somehow.
It just feels like it should have been because there was such an emphasis on like, oh, I need a heart and a key to be free, but then he ends up getting free anyway. So did they have the key and we just don't know what it was and it will be explained later on? Or is this like a plot hole? Like, did we miss that?
No, I don't think it's a plot hole. I think it's just something that does exist and we just don't know what it is. I personally feel like it has to be her soul. I think the little secret nugget, the fact that her soul is the same as that mortal soul, that has to be the key. I think it's weird, though, that it's worded as a key, though. I just feel like there is another sort of, like, placeholder word that you could use in this riddle to refer to the soul and it not be a key. Because I think that's what's a little bit confusing because it's like this imagery just doesn't really match up.
Yes.
So I don't know.
I mean, that's fair. It could be her soul. It could be the fact that she agreed to be his new tether so that they could be together.
Yeah.
So essentially, Phantasma is no more. And Phantasma was what was tethering him, Blackwell, to like the mortal world. And so the fact that it will no longer exist means that he has to go back to the immortal world and can't be among the mortals in the mortal world unless he has a new tether. And so that ends up being Ophelia. They have sort of an agreement where she, I guess, is now immortal because she says yes and chooses to be his tether into the mortal world. And so maybe it has something to do with that sort of instance. But again, like you were saying, like the imagery just isn't quite there.
Yeah. Although I don't know if it could be that because technically the key part would be part of the original curse. And then it's like, as a result of that, now everything's breaking down. And now he needs a tether because Phantasma is ending. So I think that is separate. Okay, so thinking a little bit more about it, I think that it refers to the key to her heart. I think that the heart referred to the necklace. And so he needed that heart necklace, and I would assume probably willingly being given that heart necklace. Like, he couldn't have stolen it from her. Maybe he could have. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think the other side of it is that, like, you need both her heart and you need to win over her heart. And so you need the key to her heart. And so when she admits that she's in love with him, that's that key aspect.
You know, I think that probably makes the most sense.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't very clear.
Yeah.
It really obviously, like, this is like proof. Like, we really needed to like talk it through.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure why we wouldn't be told that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll be curious if we do get clarity on that at some point, because in retrospect, it's like, okay, this does feel like a pretty solid answer, but when will this, knowing how the rest of the series is kind of meant to play out, I'm a little like, I don't know when this is going to come up again.
Yeah. Yes. Agreed.
I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah.
So the other aspect of this is that she admits that she loves him. Now, because of that, she has both broken his curse, and he is now free of Phantasma, but now she is cursed because she fell in love with Phantasma.
Yeah.
And I don't think we really get clarification also on what exactly this curse is.
I don't really know. what it is. Slash was kind of confused if she was even getting cursed because Phantasma ends up breaking down because of the fact that Blackwell's curse no longer exists because he is now free.
Right.
That was a little bit confusing of, is she cursed? And if so, what is the curse? And does it have to do with the tether? Does it have to do with the fact that she now needs a working heart? Like, what,
right.
There's
a lot of elements because, once I'm looking back at our notes to be like, the order of events. We get to the heart and the key. That happens. She says that she's falling in love with him. Mm-hmm. As payment for setting him free, Blackwell gives her a working heart.
Mm-hmm. But then we still have Ophelia possibly being cursed because of the fact that she fell in love with Blackwell. But does that curse still remain if Phantasma is now breaking down because Blackwell is free?
Right. I don't know.
Unknown.
Because the only kind of glimpse that we get into this curse is that she kind of starts to feel pain. And then there's a moment there where, I think he says Phantasma's breaking down, and she starts to say Phantasma and then, was going to say something. And then she starts feeling pain, really strong pain. So at first my thought was mentioning Phantasma brings her pain. But also I was like, this doesn't seem like a fair, what does that have to do with love? Compared to her parents and how one fell out of love with the other, basically. And then with Lucy and Leon, they can't touch each other. Mm-hmm. So, this doesn't seem equitable compared to those other curses.
Yeah.
So that was kind of confusing. And then also, furthermore, with this tether thing, it's explained that part of it is because Phantasma is breaking down and he needs a new tether and all that stuff, like you explained. But then also, I feel like there was wording, too, about, in order to break this curse, this is where also it comes up of, he's like, I could take your soul and then give it back to you real quick. And she says no.
To remove the curse.
Oh, maybe that's why. But I thought that...
So is she cursed? So maybe she is cursed.
I think it did end with her saying I'm cursed, but we don't really know how.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So maybe she is cursed because you're right. He does say something about can I borrow your soul for a second?
Yeah. And she's like,
And she's like, So maybe, conclusion. So she is cursed.
I think so.
But it hasn't been fixed?
Yeah. But it's weird to me that if she is cursed, how is it that basically they're living a happy little life
they
now?
They can just live.
Seemingly they have not run into any issues.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it's been post
Big question mark on that.
Yeah.
Big question mark on that.
Big question mark. How could she be cursed and also still successfully be in love?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's weird. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's truly it just needs time. Maybe something else in her life will fall to pieces around her as long as she's with Blackwell. She can't have Blackwell and also her sister or something like that.
Maybe. We still have a big question mark on this whole Ophelia being cursed situation that maybe they might touch on in future books, even though we know future books go kind of a different route than we expect. They do, in the epilogue, talk about how they might do some research on how the heart necklace was passed down and kind of her lineage and her connection to the original mortal that Blackwell fell in love with. So it is possible that we'll see this curse sort of take shape and form in future books. How, we're not sure. For right now, big question mark.
Yeah. Do we want to kind of start talking a little bit about the future books and how they're meant to work?
Yeah.
Because I gotta be honest, it does play into my feelings about the book. I can't help it.
Okay, yeah. We did kind of hinted, I guess, a little bit about how the future books were going to go and whether or not we were going to read them / cover them on the pod.
Yeah, because I think we were really excited about it. We obviously enjoyed our experience. Even though we have a lot of questions, it's a first fantasy book. I'm sure there's more to get covered.
Yeah.
And then we kind of look up the second book and we find out that it's not really structured the same way that a normal fantasy would. It's almost more like how sometimes in romance series, one couple and then it's okay, there's actually a second book now talking about one of those people's siblings and their romantic interests. Kind of continuing in the same family of people, but not actually following the original couple. That's kind of what's happening because the second book is about Genevieve and her falling in love with someone. Mm-hmm. Seemingly there are still fantastical elements because that's the world that we live in. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's not exactly following the same mystery and any of that sort of stuff. So I gotta be honest, I'm a little disappointed.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe because I do think I want to read the second book. We don't know if we'll necessarily read it on the pod, but like, I think that's something we'll probably explore in general. But yeah, I just don't really want to like leave Ophelia and Blackwell. I really like them. Even though I like Genevieve, I don't know if I want to necessarily move on to another character. I don't know. I'm a little disappointed.
I am also a little bit disappointed, but mostly because it's not the way I thought we were going to go, and because I felt like there were still certain loose ends, like we've been talking about for the last couple of minutes, of all of the things that we don't quite understand from Ophelia and Blackwell's story, that I thought maybe in the second book we would expand on that a little bit more.
Right.
And I also thought that the epilogue sort of almost gave us a promise of that we were going to expand on that a little bit more and learn a little bit more about that. So there is a little bit of disappointment with regards to that. But aside from those loose ends, the story itself in the first book, in Phantasma, holds up. There is a beginning, middle, and end. There is a resolution to everything. Phantasma is over. She ends up not winning, but like coming out of it alive, and so does Genevieve and possibly others, we're not sure. But now it's over, it's done, and she is happily in love. How, we still don't really know.
Yeah.
But beginning,
Right.
middle, and end, we're done. So it also kind of felt like it didn't really need a sequel to me. So I don't think I was as disappointed as you were. I was mostly disappointed because of the promises the epilogue gave us.
Yeah.
Or that I felt like the epilogue gave us in tying up sort of these loose ends in future books. Whereas after we found out what the second book at least is about, it doesn't feel like we'll actually get those loose ends tied up. And that's kind of what I was disappointed about. But I wasn't necessarily disappointed to leave Blackwell and Ophelia, just because I felt like their story was kind of completed.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that honestly, this is just a difference in taste a little bit. Honestly, I felt like in this moment, I was like, I feel like I do kind of miss typical fantasy book where it's like it ends with a bit of a cliffhanger and like it keeps you a little bit more on your toes, knowing that there's going to be another book. And I like the theorizing about how something can continue. And like technically, because of these loose ends, we kind of can do that. But yeah, I guess wanted a little bit more of a promise that this story was going to continue down this line and that we were going to keep this focus. But yeah.
What a mystifying and magical start to our first book club episode of 2026.
Yeah, a really fun way to start. I am so excited to continue this sort of trajectory, and I'm also really excited for our first off-the-shelf episode of the year, which will be our next episode, and you can join us as we both review and rate our reads from 2025 and also our predictions for our reads in 2026.
I'm really excited for this episode because I think it'll be a great way for us to kind of tie in last year's reads into how we feel this year is going to go with our reads for 2026.
I love a recap. I love the Spotify Wraps. Let me know what your Spotify Wrapped age was in the comments. All that sort of stuff.
So that episode will be available to listen to on Tuesday, January 27th, wherever you like to find your podcasts.
And then also after that, for our next book club episode, we are going to be breaking barriers because we're going to be reading our first nonfiction book for the pod.
So excited.
Yes, Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton.
For our YouTube, we don't have our physical copy.
Yes.
So this is our next book club book.
Yes, that's what it looks like. And if you're curious what this book is about, I will read the back of the book summary for you. When it comes to the trials and triumphs of becoming an adult, journalist and former Sunday Times columnist Dolly Alderton has seen and tried it all. In her memoir, she vividly recounts falling in love, finding a job, getting drunk, getting dumped, realizing that Ivan from the corner shop might just be the only reliable man in her life, and that absolutely no one can ever compare to her best girlfriends. Everything I Know About Love is about bad dates, good friends, and above all else, realizing that you are enough. Glittering with wit and insight, heart and humor, Dolly Alderton's unforgettable debut weaves together personal stories, satirical observations, a series of lists, recipes, and other vignettes that will strike a chord of recognition with women of every age, making you want to pick up the phone and tell your best friends all about it. Like Bridget Jones' diary, but all true. Everything I know about love is about the struggles of early adulthood in all its terrifying and hopeful uncertainty. Man, I'm really excited about this book. I think it's so fun to...
I am pretty excited.
...talk about a book that is about love during the month of love, not summer of love, but...
Not to be confused with.
Not to be confused. But I like the idea of talking about love in all its forms for Valentine's Day.
Agreed. Yes. Yeah. And I think it'll be fun for us to also, like you said, break barriers a little bit and cover a nonfiction book. We're really trying to go a little bit bigger this year in 2026, now that we already have a year of potting under our belts and trying to cover some different types of stories.
Yeah. Trying to get a wider variety out there.
Yes.
Just to try.
This will be pretty exciting. We'll be covering that hilarious and heartwarming memoir right here on the pod on Tuesday, February 10th. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for listening to the latest episode of our hit podcast, Read Receipts with Carly and Sam, and our first episode of 2026. All of the content that you hear in this episode was curated, recorded, and edited by us truly, with special thanks to the authors of the books that we cover and Pixabay for the music that we play. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you like to listen. We're on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music. Yes. So make sure to subscribe to get updated on all of our latest episodes. And then for more of our content in between shows, you can follow us at The Read Receipts Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We love it when we get new followers, and we love to see your comments and likes on all of the things that we post. So make sure to follow us on there. Until our next read, bye!